The shoes were old, so old that the leather had given up its shine and the soles had grown thin enough to let the cold in with every step. They were the kind of shoes that most people would throw away, the kind that carried more memories than value. But to Armin, they were all he had, and he wore them proudly as he walked from village to village fixing whatever could be fixed. Doors that wouldn't close, chairs that limped on uneven legs, clocks that forgot how to tick, Armin could handle them all with a set of tools older than himself and a smile that never seemed to fade. People didn't remember how long he had been traveling this way. Some said he had once owned a shop in a city far away. Others believed he was simply born walking, born mending the broken things of the world. But everyone agreed on one thing: wherever Armin went, warmth followed. He arrived one winter morning in a village nestled between two hills, the kind of place where children shared woolen scarves and neighbors shared bread without being asked. But even in such a gentle place, troubles waited quietly. Armin noticed it within minutes. The village square, usually alive with voices, carried a strange stillness. Smoke drifted sluggishly from chimneys, two old men sat on a bench but didn't talk. A young woman watering the stone steps of her bakery barely looked up as Armin passed. It was as if laughter had gone into hiding. Armin approached a shopkeeper sweeping fallen leaves from his doorstep. "Good morning," he greeted warmly. The shopkeeper nodded but didn't smile. "Morning. That's a fine broom you have there," Armin remarked. The shopkeeper paused and looked at him properly for the first time. "It used to be. The handle's splitting. But I haven't the time or mind to replace it." Armin tilted his head, gently sensing the heaviness behind the man's words. "Nothing that can't be fixed," he said, lifting his satchel. "May I?" The shopkeeper hesitated, but after a moment he handed it over. While Armin worked, he asked softly, "Tell me, friend, what weighs on the village today? The air feels different." The shopkeeper sighed. "It's the well." Armin looked up. "The well? The only one we have. 3 days ago, the water turned cloudy. No matter how much we draw, it doesn't clear. Without clean water, everything stops. We fear sickness. The children can't drink from it. The animals refuse it. We're waiting for help, but nobody knows when it will come." Armin nodded slowly, testing the newly repaired broom handle. He handed it back, and when the man touched it, his shoulders softened as if a small weight had finally lifted. "There," Armin said. "Good as new." The shopkeeper whispered a surprised thank you, but Armin only smiled and continued walking, the old shoes clapping softly on the stones. He made his way to the well. The stone wall around it was sturdy but worn by years of use. Villagers stood nearby, dipping buckets with worried faces. When a young boy raised a pail, Armin noticed at once, the water was cloudy with fine grit. Armin knelt down and touched the rim of the well thoughtfully. "Who usually takes care of the well?" he asked. The villagers exchanged glances before an elderly woman stepped forward. "We all do. But this time, we can't tell what the trouble is." Armin peered into the darkness below, then stood. "I'd like to take a closer look." The villagers watched him, some skeptical, some hopeful. Armin lowered himself into the well by grasping the rope, steadying his descent with his feet pressed against the inner stones. His old shoes scraped the mossy surface as he went down, carrying the weight of the villagers' hopes on their thinning soles. The air at the bottom was damp and cold. The water reached his ankles. He scooped some into his hand and inspected it under the faint light from above. He noticed something unusual, tiny fragments of rotted wood, small enough to slip through fingers. He looked up. "There's debris coming from somewhere. May I inspect the outer walls when I climb back up?" When he emerged from the well, the villagers gathered around him. "What did you see?" they asked. Armin shook the water from his clothes and pointed toward the hillside just beyond the village. "The well sits near the roots of that hill. Something up there may have shifted, perhaps a piece of an old tree has collapsed into an underground channel." The villagers exchanged uneasy looks. "It's a steep climb," someone murmured. "And the soil is loose after the recent rains." Armin smiled gently. "Then we'll climb carefully. Not quickly, not recklessly. Just carefully." And so he did. The climb was slow and cautious. His old shoes slipped more than once, but Armin steadied himself using roots and rocks, moving with the patience of someone who had spent a lifetime following problems to their quiet hiding places. At the top of the slope, he found what he suspected. A fallen tree trunk had rolled and lodged itself into a shallow crevice leading toward the underground veins of water. Each rainfall washed bits of the rotting wood deeper into the earth until they seeped into the well's water. Armin knelt beside the trunk and examined its position. It wasn't large, but it was wedged firmly, and dragging it out would be difficult alone. He turned, and found the villagers behind him, breathless, muddy, but there. "We followed you," said the shopkeeper with the mended broom. "You helped us. Let us help you." A quiet warmth filled Armin's heart. Together, they used ropes, hands, and determination to dislodge the trunk. It took time, effort, and several coordinated pulls, but at last the tree gave way with a heavy thud, rolling harmlessly aside. As it did, clean water began seeping more freely through the channel, refreshing the earth with clarity. The villagers cheered, but Armin held up a hand. "We must check the well once more," he said. They hurried back down. Within hours, the water cleared. Children laughed again, filling buckets with joy instead of fear. Women washed vegetables without hesitation. The old men on the bench resumed their quiet conversations. The baker lit her ovens with renewed energy. Life began moving again. The village chief approached Armin as he wiped the dirt from his shoes. "You have given us back our water," he said. "We cannot repay you." Armin chuckled softly. "You already have. You trusted me. And you climbed that hill with me. That is more than enough." The chief shook his head. "Stay with us. We'll build you a home, give you your own workshop. You should rest. You shouldn't have to keep wandering with those old shoes." At that, Armin looked down at them. The shoes were indeed old, patched many times, bearing the journey of countless miles. But when he lifted his eyes again, there was tenderness in them. "These shoes," Armin said quietly, "have carried me to people who needed help. When they wear out completely, I'll thank them. But for now," he smiled, "there are still places they must go." The villagers fell silent. They understood. Some journeys belong to the traveler alone. The next morning, Armin prepared to leave. The children gathered around him. "Will you come back?" one little girl asked, tugging at his sleeve. "Whenever I pass this way again," Armin promised. "But remember, kindness doesn't travel only in old shoes. It walks through your hands, your hearts, and your voices. You can help each other the same way." As he walked toward the road, the villagers waved from their doors. Armin waved back, his satchel bouncing lightly, his steps slow but steady. He had not walked far when he heard small footsteps behind him. It was the young baker from the shop. She held out a small cloth-wrapped bundle. "For your journey," she said softly. Armin opened it. Inside was a fresh loaf of warm bread. He looked at her with grateful eyes. "Thank you." She hesitated, then added, "Anne. I repaired something too." Armin blinked as she held out a pair of simple shoes, newer than his, made of soft leather, carefully stitched. "I'm no shoemaker," she explained, blushing, "but my father taught me enough. They're not perfect, but they're better than what you have." Armin took the shoes in his hands. The leather was warm from being held, the stitching neat, the effort tender. He looked from them to his own shoes. Then he did the unexpected. He set the new shoes gently back in her hands. "You made these with kindness," he said. "And kindness should stay where it grows. Keep them. Wear them. Walk the roads of this village. They will carry you farther than you think." The baker stared at him, surprised. "But your shoes?" Armin smiled, tapping them lightly against the ground. "These shoes know my journey. They're not done just yet." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. Armin gave her a blessing gesture and turned back toward the road. He walked until the village disappeared behind the curve of the hill. Then, when no one was watching, he paused under a tall tree. He sat, unlaced his old shoes, and spoke to them as if to old friends. "You've done well," he whispered. "Very well." Then he placed them beside him and took from his satchel a pair of sturdy shoes he had repaired days earlier for himself, shoes he carried but never wore until he felt the time was right. He put them on carefully. The old shoes rested beneath the tree as though relieved at last. Armin touched them one more time, then stood. The road stretched ahead, long and winding. And Armin, like kindness itself, continued his journey, leaving behind not just footprints, but a village that would remember the men whose kindness once walked in old shoes.